Welcome to the Potential Leader Lab, and I'm your host, Perry Maughmer. And this is where we don't just talk about leadership, we explore, experiment, and hopefully evolve our thinking and our actions. And I guess I would add behaviors in there because those lead to our actions. And obviously, this is not your typical leadership podcast. We don't throw around feel good quotes and teach you how to climb the corporate ladder. Here we talk about evolution, figuring out what it really takes to unlock the leader within you. And we believe leadership is not reserved for those with titles or authority. It's about action, influence, and owning the moments when leadership is required. This lab is for those who are ready to challenge themselves, push boundaries, and face the brutal truth about what it means to lead. And it's for those relentless few willing to bleed for their own evolution. It's messy, uncomfortable, and at times brutally, sometimes painfully honest, but that's where real growth happens. Leadership is not something you become, it's something you do. And here in the lab, we're going to explore and experiment with how you do just that. So if you're ready to unlock the potential you already have and embrace leadership as a moment-to-moment choice, then let's get started exploring. So today, we're going to talk about leadership as a moment. And I want to start off by, I guess, kind of broadening the definition of what it means to lead. Because for me, it's just about creating a better world for those we care about. And this occurred to me because I actually had somebody come up to me who had listened to the podcast and listened to all of them. They kind of got in late and then said they went back and listened to all of them. And they said, well, I listened to them even though I don't really lead anybody or I'm not in a leadership role. And that's when it occurred to me that I want to make sure that we explicitly talk about leading, because it isn't title, it isn't authority, it isn't position, it isn't role, it isn't any of that. It's simply about anyone who takes action to make the world a better place for those they care deeply about. And given that, I think all of us every day have an opportunity to lead. And that's what this is. That's why we kind of refer to this as the Potential Leader Lab. This isn't about people who potentially want to become a leader. Potential is really about what's inside of us. The play on words isn't about someone striving to or becoming or getting a title or a position. It's really about recognizing what's inside of us, that potential, that unrealized potential to take action to create that better world for those we care deeply about, which is leading. So let's dig in, right? About leadership being a moment. It isn't a title, it isn't a destination. It is something that happens in moments. And those moments are everywhere. But most of us miss them because we're basically too distracted by noise or ego or fear. And true leadership is really about being fully present when the moment calls for action. It's about stepping into that moment, not because you have a title, but because you have a choice. Let me say that again. Not because you have a title or even a responsibility or even a duty, you have a choice. And that's what leadership is. It's about the choices that we make. That's how we're defined as a human. We're defined by our choices, not our intentions, not our jobs, not what we produce, not what outputs we have. We're defined by our choices. So in this episode, we're going to dive into how leadership is found in those moments and not in the roles. And we'll talk about the importance of being present to recognize those moments. And we're going to talk a little bit about concepts around presence and awareness that can unlock your ability to lead when it does matter most. Leadership isn't about waiting for the right opportunity. It's about seeing the opportunities that are already in front of you. The moments to lead are happening right now. The question is, are you paying attention? Are we seeing them? I've often used the example that leadership is made up of moments, and you could be in a hurry. This could be at home with folks in your community, at your church, anywhere, at work. It could be anywhere where somebody you're moving, right? You're going from one thing to the next. You're busy. You got a lot of stuff on your calendar, and anybody could be your spouse, your child, your adult child, a friend, coworker, a peer, someone that reports to you, someone you report to, bumps into you in the hall and says, "Hey, do you have a couple minutes?" And you look at your watch and you're like, no, I'm on my way to a meeting. Can I swing by your office later? Can I catch you later? Can we do it after dinner? Any of those things for any of those people. And the person looks at you and says, yeah, that'll be fine. Well, you missed it, right? You missed it because that conversation is not going to happen now. Now, will a conversation happen? Absolutely. Well, I won't say absolutely. Maybe not. Maybe they'll just say, hey, you go back to that person, you circle back around at the end of the day and you say, hey, you wanted to talk. And they're like, nah, I took care of it. Don't worry about it. There's a Japanese concept called ichigo ichi, and it's one meeting, one time is essentially what it means. And it means that every time you have any meeting with groups of people, with individuals, all of those things, that meeting can only happen then. That meeting will never happen the same way ever again. No matter if you have that meeting every week, every month, every quarter, that exact meeting happens in that moment one time. You have one time to have that meeting. And that's what we're talking about here. So let's dig into how leadership is not a role. It's found in moments. So let's talk about the myth of leadership as a role. We've been taught, conditioned, social conditioning, right, to think of leadership as a role or a position that you grow into, and it's tied to duties and responsibilities. But none of that is true because leadership doesn't wait for a title. It's found in the moments that you choose to act, when you step up because the situation calls for it. And this is not some grandiose gesture we're talking about. These are the little things. It's about seeing the opportunities in front of you with other humans, about reading a room, about being aware of what people are thinking and feeling, not necessarily all that they're saying. And you do have to have a level of situational awareness for that. But the first thing you have to do is you have to want to do it. You have to believe that's the job, because when you have the opportunities lie in what's not said, not what's said. Being able to watch a room or to listen to the question behind the question, to read somebody's body language, to be sensitive, have empathy, not be in a hurry. We go back to being present, right? If I'm fully present in that moment, I'm taking in everything that's going on around me. I'm not constantly checking my watch or my phone or thinking about the next thing that I need to do while the person's talking to me. So we have to slow down. We have to be aware. We have to be here. I heard there was, I think, a speaker one time I heard that said, be where your feet are. That's all you have to do. Just be where your feet are. Now, the second part of why it's not a role is it's because it's a verb, not a noun, right? It's not an identity. Leadership is not a fixed identity. It's an action that you take when the moment presents itself. Nobody has a job title of leader, or they shouldn't. If they do, it's punch them in the throat, right? It's not a job. It's not a title. It's something you do. And so nobody is expected to lead all day, every day. Again, if we look at this as moments, the role of a leader is to find these moments, because you could have just one or two a day that are truly, truly meaningful. But if you're not present, you're going to miss them. If you're busy, you're going to miss them. If you're in a hurry, you're going to miss them. It's something you do, not who you are. And the other reason it's really important for it to be a verb and not a noun is because if it's an activity that I do, it's something I can get better at, because it's not who I am. If it becomes a noun and it becomes a label and it becomes a job, then I have a very hard time getting any better at it, because now it's me, right? So I can't be as objective about my behavior as I would be if it was an activity that I was doing. Because if I play the guitar, I can get better at playing the guitar because I'm not a guitar player, right? So if this is an activity we're doing, then I can always get better at it. But if we make it into a title and we start to identify it as a label, it gets harder and harder to be objective about it, because I'm already there. I've already arrived. I am a leader. Done. There we go. Don't have to worry about it anymore. And it's funny, if you want to, I think it was Eckhart Tolle who said, if you want a better future, you have to make a better present. right? So the present is the only point of power. There's no point of power in the future or in the past. Leadership happens now, not in the future. When you've theoretically earned it, or you have the ability, or you have the insight, or it's all ridiculous, right? It's all essentially bullshit we've been fed. You don't aspire to leadership, you act your way into leading. You see the opportunity and you act. That's the only way we learn. Doesn't go well every time. It doesn't even go well if you've been doing it for 25 years. You still screw it up. The point isn't to be perfect, it's to try. It's to put yourself out there in service to other people. And I'll go back to, I'm kind of stuck on this with about every conversation I have, is Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. All right. We have safety needs and physiological needs and esteem needs and belonging needs, and then self-actualization. And Maslow said later in life, he said self-actualization is not the top of the pyramid. We get so consumed with ourselves. This is where we have to be careful of the narcissistic approach to leadership, where it becomes about us. Because he said the top of the pyramid is actually self-transcendence. It's when we move beyond ourselves in service to other people. That's the top of the pyramid, not self-actualization. Self-actualization is all about us. It's all about living in our own head. It's all about me, 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 and what am I doing and how am I becoming better? But you don't become better for nothing. You being better or being at the top of your game is of no value if you're not serving other people. And that's what Maslow said, self-transcendence, moving beyond ourselves. That's the trick, right? That's leading. Leading is doing for others, not for yourself. So what I would ask you in this particular instance is the action step would be start noticing the present moment. Where are the leadership moments happening for you right now? Like, look around. You don't need a title. You need to be present and ready to act. That's it. The only thing you need. You be present, ready to act. No title, no experience needed. Because I go back to, if you're trying to make the world a better place for the people you care deeply about, you don't need any experience doing that. You just need the desire to act. So how does presence unlock leadership? Well, we live in a world of distraction. Media, stress, ego, the constant rush of all the tasks we have to do. And these distractions pull us away from the present moment and keep us focused on things that don't matter. And when you're distracted, you miss. You miss a lot. Most of all, you miss the opportunity to lead, because leadership requires presence, and that is being fully aware of what's happening right here, right now, in this moment. What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What does it look like? What does it sound like? Ground yourself in the moment, because that's what matters. That's the only point of power. And that's the only reality we have. The only true reality is the present moment. And when you're fully present, you can see the situation in front of you without being clouded by fear and anxiety and ego. Leadership moments are never found in the past or in the future. They're only found in the present. Now, this requires, and we could dive really deep into this, but there's the underpinning theory of most of existentialism is that all of what we do around control, anything that we do, planning at the top of the list. So right now, a lot of business people, because it's September 30th, entering into the fourth quarter of the year, are doing the dreaded 2025 planning process. Now, the reason I bring this up is because the argument can be made that when you dig really deep into it, all of our planning and an effort, because all planning is an effort to control the future, predict the future, own the future, create the future. What that's really about is avoiding death. That's what existentialism says, is that all of that is our desperate attempt to not face death, the great uncertainty, the only certain uncertainty, because it's the only thing we know is going to happen, but it's also the only thing we have no idea what happens. But all of our efforts, all of our control, and the reason I bring this up is we have to give up control. because you might as well give up something you never had to start with. It's all a fallacy. Like we kid ourselves in thinking we have some level of control. That's why we plan. That's why we make to-do lists. That's why we do any of that, is to give ourselves a false sense of control on the environment and avoid death. Makes us feel better, doesn't it? Makes us feel better. We have a to-do list. We have an appointment. We have a calendar. I have places to be. I have things to do. I have people to see. I have places to go. Well, that means I can't die because I'm controlling my environment, and we don't. And I want to be clear, leadership is the furthest thing from control. Unfortunately, that's what we think. We think leadership is control. We think that leaders make things happen. Well, what you want is clarity, not an attachment to the outcome. John Adams is credited with saying, duty is ours, the results are God's. Whatever you believe, the reality is I don't care what faith you practice, you are not, never have been, not now, never will be in control of anything except your behavior, your decisions, your actions. The great paradox, right? The best way to impact other people's behavior is change your own. The best way to have a happy life is quit focusing on other people. Comparison is the thief of joy. Roosevelt said that. Teddy Roosevelt said that. But it's only when we give up that need for control that we can truly practice leading. Because there's other humans involved, and nobody wants to be controlled. Nobody wants to be told what to do. They want to be inspired. They want to connect to something bigger than themselves. They want to see something. They want to matter. Again, back to our need to make sense of the world and avoid death. We need our lives to matter. Now we get into a whole thing because they don't. At the end of the day, they don't. 1,000 years from now, nobody's going to care. But we can't talk about that. We're not going to get too far off track with that because that'll really rile some people up. Because none of us are special, right? Although we strive to be, and we want to be self-actualized, and we want to act authentically and all that bullshit. The meaning of life is to live. That's it. Not to leave your mark, not to do any of that stuff. It's to do right by the people that you're working with, by the people that you live with, creating a better world for those that you care deeply about. That's all we can do. That's all we should do. And that world is relatively small. That's what's so great about it. So the action step here, be aware. Be aware of your surroundings, your emotions, your reactions. And the next time a situation calls for leadership, focus on being fully present rather than trying to control the outcome. What happens is going to happen regardless of what you do, but what you do matters. It matters to people. It matters to those people you care deeply about. Your actions matter. The outcome doesn't matter. That's where we get conflicted because we keep thinking that we judge everything by the outcome, and that's not how we should evaluate things. We evaluate things by our actions. Because I can make a really bad decision and have a good outcome. That doesn't make it a good decision. Or I could have a really sound decision and have a bad outcome. Doesn't make it a bad decision. But we can't be so outcome focused because to be quite honest, and this is just my opinion, right? You're like, oh, no shit. This is all my opinion. Like the whole thing's my opinion. None of this is fact, right? It's just my opinion. Is that we are too outcome focused overall, and we're getting more so and more so like that, to where we are slipping dangerously close to the ends justify the means, which is a very philosophically dangerous place to be. Now, next part, you already have what it takes. See, this is the most wonderful thing about this whole process. You do not need anything else, right? You don't need any more training. You don't need to read a book. You don't need a class. You don't need a course. You don't need any of that stuff. What you need is the basics. The moments to lead are all around you. But most of us miss them because we're waiting on the perfect moment or the formal opportunity. It's funny. Years ago, I taught in Franklin University's MBA graduate school of business, and I taught leadership courses, and I taught uh, the the capstone course in strategy. And it was funny because these people had gone through, a 16-month program, and they're getting ready to graduate and get anointed with their MBA and have those 3 letters and wonderful things. And I said, you guys do understand something, right? When you get your piece of paper, there is no formal knighting ceremony back at work. Like, you're not going to go back there and they're going to go, we now anoint you the all knowing and all seeing person, and we're ready for you to, tell us what to do. That doesn't happen. So there is no formal opportunity or moment. I don't care. You could say, oh, it's up from when I get promoted. No, that's not the way this works. First of all, you never get promoted because you're going to do something. Just understand that. Nobody in the world cares about what you're going to do. They care about what you did. They care about how you acted, how you took action, what you've already said, not what you're going to say, not what you're going to do, not what you're going to learn, not how you're going to evolve. None of that matters. What matters is, what are you doing now? It's not a leadership if anything, is not about waiting. It's about recognizing the moment when it presents itself. And that requires being present. So do you get that? Recognizing the moment when the moment presents itself, but then you have to be present to see when the moment presents itself. Because in the moment is the opportunity. And that's why that old saying about effective or efficient, right? Years ago, I learned this from a gentleman I worked for. And he told me one day, he's like, here's the thing, if you have 10 things on your list and you get 9 things done, but the 10th thing was the thing that you should really have done, you had a bad day. 9 out of 10 doesn't matter. What matters is you didn't do the thing that meant the most because you were too busy trying to be efficient, not effective. It's the 80-20 rule, right? It's the Pareto principle. It's 20% of what you do generates 80% of the outcomes. Think about that. 20% of what you do generates 80% of meaningful output for you, for anybody. Now, the formula isn't exactly 80-20. It doesn't have to add up to 100. It's just that a much smaller amount of what we do has a much greater impact. So our job, each of us, is to figure out what are those things. What are those high value activities that we should focus on? Because the flip side of that's the scary part, which is 80% of what you do any given day only generates 20% of the output that you want. That's the scary part. So figure out the 20%, the moments. Again, we can translate this directly. Those are the leadership moments. Those are the things that matter, that have long lasting impact on those around you. But you have to stop waiting for permission. Nobody's going to give it. You have to take it. Because here's the thing, nobody's stopping you. That's the most wonderful thing about this. I don't know of any leader in an organization, of anybody who owns a company, runs a company, manages a division, any of that, who would tell people, no, please don't take those opportunities to create a better world for those you care deeply about. Because this isn't about more pay. This isn't about a promotion. This is about having meaningful conversations. That's what this is about. That's what leading is. And it's really just fear that holds people back. We're scared because, again, you're waiting on permission. You don't think you're ready. You don't think you have the experience. What if I do it wrong? What if I screw it up? I got news for you. You're going to screw it up. I think it was Churchill who said, leaders are people who go from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm. And that's true, right? You're going to screw it up. That's okay. It doesn't matter. You tried. That's how we learn. No, I mean, if it's so amazing. I was with a group of people the other day. I'm going to mark my place here if you're watching, so I know when I go off on a tangent, I come back to the right place. But I was with a group of people the other day, and they work in the trades and the construction. And I asked them, it was a funny conversation because I said, how long does it take somebody to become, move through to become a journeyman from an apprentice? And the response was, well, it depends on the person, anywhere from, it could be 3, 4, 5 years. And I said, so how long is the development when you promote somebody to a foreman? How long does that development take? I just got blank stares. Because what they expected was 90 days, 30 days, 6 months. So we know technically on the technical stuff, it could take years before somebody truly becomes highly functioning in a space for anything, not just the trades, for anything. But yet we look at people who are going to be in managerial and leadership roles, and we expect them to transform in 90 days. We expect them to transform in 6 months. That same amount of time should apply to somebody in a leadership role, only it never ends. Like it can't even be after 5 years. To be honest with you, you don't even know what you don't know for several years. So the first 3 years that you're leading anybody that you are if you're responsible for other humans, the first 3 or 4 years are just malpractice. They didn't know it. They don't know any better because they think since you're in charge, you're supposed to know what you're doing. So they just take it for granted. You know what you're doing. You're the only one who knows how bad you are later. Like by the 10th year of doing it, you can look back at your first 3 or 4 years and go, holy mackerel, that was horrible. I can't believe I said that. I did that. I can't believe all those things. We all do it. But yet we try to compress it and we think people are going to learn how to lead like that. And that's the fear we have to overcome. You need to just be willing to act. You don't, brave people don't have, they don't have a lack of fear. They just act in spite of fear. See, that's the thing that's the other kind of fallacies. We think brave people aren't afraid of things. They're not scared. No, they're scared. They just do it anyway. So I want you to think about right now as an action step. I want everybody listening to think about what situations in your life, not your work, in your life are calling you to step up now. Think of a couple. You all have them. They're all right in front of you. You probably feel a little queasy thinking about them. That's okay. I want to challenge you to stop waiting for permission and recognize you have the capacity to do it right now, in this moment, today. Because if you think about this, leadership is all about intent. If your intent is to create a better world for those you care about, you can start today. So it's about, and by the way, leadership is about connection. It's not about authority, it's about influence. And influence comes from connection. And you can only connect in the present moment. Because you connect when you see who people are, what they need, what matters to them. And that's where leadership starts. It's not about telling people what to do. It's about being there for them. That's what leaders are. You're there for people. And Eckhart Tolle talks about the power of surrender, leading from a place of service, self-transcendence, moving beyond ourselves. C.S. Lewis, I love this quote. He said, you don't have to think less of yourself. Just think of yourself less. It's, I have it. I say to myself like 10 times a day. And that's the ego's need for control. Back to, the challenge we have. Leading is a form of service. And to lead effectively, you've got to surrender your agenda, whatever that might be, and be fully present with those people you're there to serve. That's where true influence comes from, because they feel it. Once they feel that, they act as well. But you have to have that presence and connection. They have to believe they're important. And the only way you're going to prove that to them is by being present with them. That's what makes people feel that way. We know when somebody's present. We know when somebody's giving us their full attention. And by the way, that's not something you do 100% of the time, because it's damn creepy if you do, right? It's just for moments. Seriously, the next time you talk to somebody for like a couple minutes, just give them your full attention. Focus on them and what they're saying, not on your response and what you're going to do and how you're going to solve their problem, how you're going to make it better for them. That's not it. It's about listening. And it's about a commitment to now, commitment to the present moment, seeing what's happening now and responding to it, not thinking about how you'd like to do it someday. The more you practice presence, the more opportunities you're going to find. You're going to be amazed at how many things you didn't see before. And this, I can liken this like years ago. I worked at a hearing aid company, and I was always amazed at the stories because I had never been in that industry before. Because your hearing starts to deteriorate little by little. You don't just wake up one day and you can't hear. You lose a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. And so you never really know how bad your hearing is until you would get a pair of hearing aids. And the stories that people would tell about all the things that were going on around them that they never knew till they put their hearing aids on. I remember this one story. One gentleman talked about he always drove home a certain way, and once he got his hearing aids, he realized when he would make a turn, he'd turn his turn signal on, but the turn wasn't sharp enough to make the turn signal go off, and he never realized that till he got his hearing aids because he could hear it clicking. He never heard it before, and that's what we're talking about here. Is that if you can have the same awakening around leadership moments if you start paying attention, you start being present. You're going to see them everywhere. You're going to hear them everywhere. You're going to feel them everywhere. And you feel them long before you think of them. You sense them long before you make sense of them. Let me repeat that. You sense them long before you make sense of them. You know when something's not right. You know when someone's not right. So, will you make that action step of making the commitment to be fully present? Just practice it with interactions with people that you have every day. Don't do it every time. Try try little experiments at first, ones that are lower risk. And ask yourself, how can I lead in this moment right now with this person? Just try it once tomorrow because it's a muscle that you have to develop. And it's so, leadership is accessible to everybody in every moment. It doesn't only happen on big stages and boardrooms, it happens in everyday moments. In fact, the most meaningful ones are everyday moments. I will share briefly with you that I I was unfortunately fortunate to be out of work for an extended period of time twice in my life. Now, funny enough, it was the happened to be the senior year of two of my three kids when I was. So, you know what that led to? That led to many, many, many conversations that I would never otherwise have had because I was at home when they got home from school. Lisa was working. She had her store at that time, so she wasn't. So when they would come home from school, I was there. So we would have these fantastic conversations that happened that would never have happened if I was working. And that's where you take advantage. So being out of work didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And those moments were there because I could have been, which I was, stressed and worried and all those things, but I learned to be present when they came home because I heard what was going on. I saw the opportunity. So I wasn't leading a huge organization. I didn't have 100 clients. I didn't have any of that stuff. I didn't have anything, but I had the most important thing. I was there for the people that I care most deeply about, and I tried to make it a better world for them. We had conversations that mattered that I wouldn't trade for any amount of revenue or profit. And that next leadership moment for you is happening right now. So are you paying attention? And we are free to choose in every moment. And that is leading is about the moment and about choosing and acting. But you have to have the awareness to see the moment and the courage to act on it. So you have to have awareness to see it and the courage to act on it. It's scary. There's no guarantee. And I can say without any kind of hesitation, you will fail. Doesn't matter because effort matters. Attempts matter. At bats matter. And leading is for everyone. It's not for elite groups. It's not for titles. It's not for jobs. It's not for roles. It's accessible to every single person. And every person has the ability to influence the world around them. But it starts with being present and seeing those moments. You have to be awake to the moments where you can lead. So, action step here, stop waiting. Just stop waiting. Be present, see what's available to you right now, and act. So we know leadership's not a role. It's something that happens in moments. It's found in the present moment. It's about being present, being aware, and choosing to act. So are you present enough to lead? Well, that's it for today's exploration. So now it's up to you to create your own experiments on the way to your own personal evolution. And remember, leadership isn't something that happens to you, it's something you step into. You already have the tools, the influence, and the potential. The only thing left is for you to recognize the moment where leadership is needed and act. So, what's your next move? Where will you step up? Because leadership isn't about waiting for permission, it's about recognizing that you're already capable right now. The question is, will you act? If you found today's lab session valuable, make sure to subscribe, share, and keep coming back for more raw, unfiltered conversations on how to unlock the leader within you so you can create a better world for those you care deeply about. Until next time, remember, leadership is a verb. Go do it.